Hi, I'm Scott Mussell, the Americana Specialist at Hake's Americana, and I'm here with our founder, Ted Hake.
Hi, I'm Ted, and I started this auction back in the 1960s.
That's almost 50 years, Ted.
Just getting there, almost 50, and number 218.
This just came out a couple of days ago, and we're going to talk a little bit about the political, civil rights, and some of the concert posters that we have in the auction. One of the very top highlights of everything is this Abraham Lincoln campaign flag. If you're a collector in this field, I mean, there's really there's these parade flags and maybe the Cox Roosevelt Juget.
Among the pre-1896 material, flags are right at the top of every collector's want list.
Yeah, and then there's Abraham Lincoln flags, and then there's every other kind of flag.
Right.
And this is just a beautiful example. It was a small find of these on the back of a quilt, so all the pigments and light that would have hurt this thing it's just beautiful, beautiful condition. So it's very rare to find them like that, and that's really kind of a very special thing. Kind of a more unusual Lincoln thing is we have this lead coffin relic, as I'm calling it. And so these were pulled out of his coffin in 1901. They stripped all the lead out of the edges of it, and they struck a few of these. This is only the second one we've seen.
Yes, yeah. They were reinterring him, which happened more than once, but this was 1901, the final time, and they took the lead out of the coffin and they interred the coffin in cement. But some enterprising soul made a few souvenirs of the event, and it's a strange relic.
Certainly, it's very macabre, but it's still very interesting. What else you got for me, Ted?
Well, we got a little array of things over here. The thing about politicals, which is so great, is that you can go so many different directions. You can collect mechanicals, you can collect buttons, you can collect posters, ribbons, cigar cutters. I mean, it goes on and on. But here's an example of a mechanical. This is a pretty great, scarce one. This is from 1900. It says, get your eye on this before and after. And there's Teddy Roosevelt in his Rough Rider uniform.
He's charging up San Juan Hill.
Yeah.
There's an explosion kind of going on in the middle.
And he got his foot there, and then what he does is he kicks the Democratic donkey. So that's called a mechanical. Here's another sort of a form of a mechanical made out of pure celluloid. And one thing these things all have in common, most of them, is they're either made of or covered in celluloid, a material that was invented in the 1870s, and then in 1896, Whitehead and Hogue learned how to make a very thin sheet of it, which they used to cover the paper, which the image is printed on. But here's one out of pure celluloid, a ruler. Neat little, again, mechanical item, and it's called a coattail because here Teddy Roosevelt, the presidential candidate, is being matched up with a local candidate with the slogan, "They stand together. Faithful public servants, support them." So that's just another one of the strange kind of campaign items that used to be made in great profusion. And here's some other things that Scott can talk about.
Yeah, this is a lot of the campaign buttons, which is sort of the core of collecting this stuff, at least at the post-1896. This is a nice array of things, from as early as 1900 to, Kennedy in 1960, and gives you a pretty good feel. So several interesting jugs. One that I'll point out is this Harry Truman piece is from his very first campaign before he becomes president. This is in 1922. He runs for judge in the Eastern District in Missouri. So it's just very nice early stuff. You don't find a lot of pre-presidential things because they would have been made in much smaller quantities. So you know that's a very rare piece.
I wanted to mention just the fact that two pictures are on some of these buttons. In our hobby, there's a special word for that. It's called Jugate, Jugate. It comes from a Greek, is the linguistic origin of it. It means side-by-side pictures or busts of people. So collectors like that concept because it shows the presidential candidate, the vice presidential candidate, and you can start in 1896 and you can specialize in matching up Jugates for candidates from 1896 up until 2016. We've also got, what else do we have here? A welcome home button for Teddy coming back from Africa after he left the presidency, he went to Africa on a safari and collected specimens for the American Museum of Natural History. And then he came back to New York, and there's Uncle Sam welcoming him back from his African safari. Now here's another interesting group. This is all Eugene Debs. This was a very advanced lifetime collection. They're all buttons up here, but here's actually a little pocket mirror. These were primarily giveaways for ladies, and that's got Eugene Debs on it and quite rare. Debs began life in Indiana as a Democrat in the 1870s, but he got into railway unions and became an ardent supporter of the labor movement. He went to jail in the 1890s, and while he was in jail for about 6 months, he was convicted of basically supporting a strike which interfered with the delivery of the U.S. mail. So that was his crime. And during those 6 months, in jail, he discovered Karl Marx and socialist theory, and he came out of jail a changed man. He went on to run for president 5 times, and curiously, in 1920, these are called convict buttons, he was in jail when he was running for president in 1920. This is an early one from 1900, another 1900. Actually, we've got 3 great rarities here. The convict button, which shows his convict number, is what we'd call scarce. This version is what we'd call rare. And this version is like a one of a kind. It's incredibly rare, and probably from about 1919. But that and the mirror will be the 2 highlights in our Debs section. The civil rights is another immensely popular area, which actually is a specialization of Scott's, so he can cover that.
Everything in that frame is related to Martin Luther King in some way. The button at the top is from the March on Washington, where he gives his "I Have a Dream" speech. You see "Nonviolence, Redeemer of Mankind." We believe that was probably produced around the time of his Nobel Prize. The button at the bottom is the Meredith March for Freedom, and that was kind of a turning point for the movement. Stokely Carmichael is there, and he gives his Black Power speech, and King kind of leaves, and when he comes back, the movement is kind of split into sort of a radical faction and the people who are for King's Way, which leads to that last button there, "I'm for King's Way." In speaking about Stokely Carmichael, we have some great paper from the civil rights movement, and this piece is just really one of the most radical that I've ever seen, and it ties King and Malcolm X. This is the only time King and Malcolm X ever met. It was on the steps of the Capitol, and so this is a very famous image, but it's for the All African People's Revolutionary Party, which was something that Stokely Carmichael did basically from about 1968 through the end of his life. He worked on promoting Pan-Africanism. And so this is something that's really unusual to tie Stokely Carmichael, who's a major figure in that movement, with 2 other major figures in that movement. I mean, if there's 3 household names for the civil rights movement, it might be those guys, or it probably should be. Another kind of less known guy, but a martyr of the Black Panther Party, is Fred Hampton. He was a Black Panther in Chicago and was a major figure in organizing there, and he was murdered in his home in Chicago. And then Emory Douglas, who's the artist for the Panthers, he produced this poster afterwards, and to this day, I mean, there's a recent documentary about the Panthers, and Hampton played a good role in that. But Emory's work is just beautiful, and this is highlighted by these rays, and there's several other Emory Douglas posters in the auction, but this is just a really great Black Panther relic. And as we're in transition into our concert posters, it's sort of a civil rights concert poster. So this is the Rat Pack, and they're doing a Stars for Freedom event in Santa Monica. So this was supposed to be on November 25th of 1963, but President Kennedy was assassinated, so they had to move it to a little later in December. But you don't see too many things with all 3 of the guys on it. And this was for National Association of Advancement of Colored People, CORE, and Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which of course Martin Luther King is the president of. So this is I've never seen one of these before.
There can't be many out there.
We were really excited when that came in.
That was meant to go up on a telephone pole, and probably not many came off.
No, yeah, and I mean that's the 1960s for you. This kind of encompasses two things that are going on, sort of the radicalism and the social unrest, and then the music.
Yeah.
I think those are two major things in the 60s. So
Yep.
that leads us all to this. So here's a really great, what we would call a boxing style poster for Ike and Tina Turner in their review at the Civic Playhouse down in Kansas. Ted and I, we've decided our favorite thing about this is the booking promoter. His name is Spud Nick. So,
Takeoff on the Russians launched their satellite Sputnik in 1957, but a few years later, this booking agency is still doing a play on their name.
But I mean, it's great. It's image of Ike and Tina separate and together with the Ikeettes. It's got the Dayglow colors. It's it's on cardboard. It's got just about everything you'd want in an Ike and Tina poster. Moving on from that, into more Dayglow, is this fantastic Grateful Dead poster from Fort Worth, Texas. They're not listed on this, but ZZ Top actually opened at this show. They were relatively unknown at the time. Mm-hmm. So, but this is just great. I mean, it's on very thin paper, and it's made basically, it's the silkscreen process, so it's like almost like paint on there, and it's just stunning that this would survive in this kind of condition. And you can't ask for better graphics on something like this. I mean, you've got rocket ship, peace sign. Here's Mercury, an atomic explosion. This is actually for a concert that was in 1970, but it's got every single thing you'd ever want from 1960s feel to it. And then take concert posters a step further. This is from the last show at Winterland, which was a major California venue at the time. And this is
an
cool.
autograph, Scott.
Yeah, it's stunning. But Stanley Mouse and Kelly, both major figures in the art movement in San Francisco and in the Bay Area at the time. And it's nice to see one that's signed by both of them.
Yeah.
They're two legendary figures in that. And, it's just a great Rose image, the Grateful Dead, and from Winterland, the very last night of that historic venue. It's like the first ice hockey rink that rock bands played in,
That is true, yes.
So that's some of our stuff.
Oh, a
That's
few
what we got
highlights,
this time,
yeah. So anyway, it's all online.
But this thing is full
Yeah.
of all kinds of stuff. So definitely get online and check it out. It's online now, and write to us. We have a lot of extra catalogs. So plenty of free catalogs.
www.hakes.com.
Hakes.com, and I guess that's all we got.
Yeah, it closes July 12th to 14th, so get your bids in before then. But great pictures online, full descriptions, just 200 years of American history, and it's all fun to collect.